Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another conversation of the Policy Panchayat, where we have guests from all across the public policy and social impact broader field, doing interesting work and chat with them about their journey and what they think is important for anyone looking to build a career here, or honestly just learn more about policy, right? Why it matters, how to interact with it, and all of it. Today we have someone very special, someone that I've known for a while and I've really been closely following their work. Partha Jeet Das. He's a director at the Central Square Foundation. For anyone who wishes to work in the broader education policy space in India, you might have heard of CSO for sure. And Partha works in a very, very senior role there, leading the state's strategic support team. I'll ask Partha to, if you could just introduce yourself, and we'll just get started with the conversation.
Thanks, Yash, and thanks for having me here. It feels great to be a part of the Policy Panchayat. Yeah, I've been also quite excited by this space and just seeing the buzz and energy around this space, particularly among young people, either graduating out of colleges or in colleges, or even those who have some years of experience behind them to contribute and work in this space. And that's something fundamentally different I'm seeing. So happy to be, spending some time sort of broadly demystifying or telling more about some of what's the work in this space, because I believe irrespective of where I have worked, whether it is a for-profit management consultancy or the not-for-profit sector, which is where I'm working right now at Central Square Foundation, I've dabbled in a few sectors, let's say broadly the social sector, started my career with health, women and child development, nutrition, and a few others, but slowly wanted to specialize in education. And over there, I probably worked with the entire spectrum of education, starting from the school education to higher education to the technical and vocational and the skills area. Obviously, over the last 4 to 5 years, and including my stint here at Central Square Foundation, we've been focusing on the school education. And right now, I would say aggressively focusing on the foundational years, which we believe is very critical. And I think one of the reasons why not only the education sector per se, but I think because of that in the economy, in the society, we don't see India where we would like it to see, is the reason that, our foundational years education has been probably limited to, giving access to schooling, but learning is not happening for all. And that's the problem, we at Central Square Foundation are keen and committed to solve. And I think that's where my role comes in, wherein I work with a portfolio of 5 to 7 states, directly and indirectly, where we have our own teams or we work with through partners, supporting the states to, run and manage a foundation learning program effectively, which ensures outcomes for the children and the teachers. So yes, that's what I'm doing right now.
No, that's very helpful, Partha. And I'll just ask you to just maybe briefly, elaborate on like your career journey thus far in this, because I know that you've entered this education policy, many years of working at a lot of other places, very different roles. And how did you even discover policy, right? Like, how did you get started here?
No, thanks, Yash. That takes me back to probably 16, 17 years back. But, I typically had a very, I would say, as most of us do, I think, these days there are this career counselings and everything. And you do a psychometric test. Now, those days we just had our parents and, family members to advise them on what to do and not to do. And there wasn't much we could say or do about it. And coming from Odisha, Bhubaneswar, my parents wanted me to pursue engineering, and then I pursued after engineering MBA. The standard, prescription was there. But somewhere, I would say yes, through some amount of volunteering that I did, thanks to some friends, etc. The consciousness about this social sector and potentially what one could do there had started to build up. And I think even in consulting, I would say, I wanted to get into problem solving and, the variety that the consulting organization offers, moving from one project to the other. Travel was always a big part of what I was fascinated about, still continue to do that. I wanted to choose a career in consulting. So that was clearer to me. So out of the couple of, a bunch of offers I had, I chose a career in consulting in PwC and PricewaterhouseCoopers. And interestingly, they were starting to deal with or, take up or dabble with this area of, then we used to call it social sector consulting. Or, I think public policy as a term in India wasn't so vogue, let's say, among young people like me who were, graduating out of, B schools and universities. It wasn't there. There was the other spectrum of blue people who wanted to do social work, and that meant a very different world. We, the so-called, the mainstream or whatever, engineering was vogue and all. We didn't want to go there. We didn't know that was a different world. But here, I think the social sector consulting was happening, and that's where I chose. I would say part luck, part chance, and part choice. I was supposed to work in a different sector of electrical, which matched my career, power sector consulting, and so on, which are funded projects. But actually chose to be in a social sector because I found it exciting. I wanted to solve problems which affected the lives of people, as opposed to, let's say, the balance sheet of an organization. So that was the big game changer, I would say. That was clearer to me. What would give me happiness and continuity and commitment to wake up every day and go to work will be if I'm able to make, now this word is vogue, impact in lives of a lot of people. And that was clearer to me. So I chose to be in this sector.
Yeah.
And as I said, throughout my career, there have been chances which came my way, some opportunities to go deeper in work, some opportunities to work with, let's say, the best in the business, right? The multilateral agencies and working at the highest level in the government, supporting them at the Ministry of Education, then MHRD, and so on. I've had those opportunities and I've made those choices. So that's how I've sort of been and continue to be engaged in this sector, Yash.
And especially given your recent sort of a stint, Partha, especially the last few years, right, in proper, let's say, policy consulting, how have you seen the space change and evolve in the like 7, 8, 10 years or so, right? Because roughly speaking, pre-2014 policy was very different, right? Just bureaucracy, and like today it's just a very different field. So how have you seen this evolve in terms of, say, even jobs, impacts, opportunities, just last 10 years alone, maybe?
You're right. I think, earlier, I would say the bunch of us who work in this area would be the so-called minority. Okay. Okay. And people would not know. People would even work, ask me that, is this like the CSR part? Is it charity? What are you doing? Even in, let's say, even if I was working in, let's say, these big MNCs, and these were proper, practices which had the same margin and I would say revenue expectations as anything else, whether I was in Accenture, whether I was in KPMG or Ernst & Young, and and the latest I was with when I was leading a practice in Ernst & Young on government consulting, the pressure and the margins were the same, the pressures were the same. But I think people didn't realize it. People thought it is, are you doing this for some foundations? Is it a special arm which doesn't have to generate profit or revenue? That was not the case. Nowadays, I think, people are realizing, and I think, and what it means for talent, that that you could make business out of it. In a sense, there is enough business case. I'm not necessarily making, this point with the sense of profit making or money making. There is enough work. That's what I'm saying. There is enough and more work. And that's why all these, large organizations and consulting companies, whether it's the big four, even let's say McKinsey, BCG, and all of us have huge practices today. And as I said again, these are not supposed to have different, margin expectations. They are just run like a business. So there is enough work. Globally, also, if you look at the multilateral agencies and all of that, they pump in a lot of money and they want it to be then managed professionally and, things to be done well. Hence, a lot of consulting organizations are engaged. Plus, there is a lot of philanthropy, CSR, and other money and investment coming into the sector. So what that means is there is wider awareness about this space. And as I said, one of the interesting things from what people are keen to do is people want to be in this space by choice. And, they're making informed choice to be in this space if they want to create a difference. And then in terms of what is that they want to do in their lives. And a lot more people are keen to be in this space and create impact in the lives of people, whether it is health, whether it is education, whether it is sanitation, and so on and so forth. And they believe they have to do it necessarily, I think not in one way. Right? That's interesting. That's changing. Earlier there was, let's say I was saying, so if you have to work in this field, you do MSW, you do you work in a certain kind of organizations, you get paid a certain amount of money and all of that. Now I think there is a whole variety of space, right? Starting from implementation to designing to tech in that. There is a whole program management part of it. There is a funding side of it. You can work there as well. Where you're potentially ensuring that the money is spent on the right areas and it is spent well. And this whole gamut of careers and all of that. It's an explosion which has happened. I only hope that it helps the sector as opposed to hindering it. I would not be very sure about it just because more of it is happening.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily augur, that yes, it's a lot of good thing. We have a lot of talent, but we have to be careful that it helps the sector and helps the people and those lives as opposed to hindering it.
Couldn't agree more. That's that's a very important, very nuanced point that you brought about. I'll bring you back to the sector that you work in currently. Very rookie introductory sort of a question, but what are the three biggest challenges in your understanding and opinion facing the education sector in India, right? And probably some ways you think we could address them.
Sure, no, I try to, sort of, it's potentially, education sector per se is quite broad, right? Starting from early childhood education, which is now deeply prioritized by the
Yeah.
NEP, the foundational years, and then obviously the other spectrum is the job skills, higher education. And we have problems across, right? So, but I'll try to say an answer which potentially, I'll try to answer in a way which meets all of these. It's not specifically school education specific or higher education specific. So the first one is about, I would say, having an ambition or goals informed by outcomes. So potentially the point I'm making is about, the first problem is having consistent outcomes that we are aiming for as a country and them being, high enough, right? My point is, we seem to be happy for the last 20, 30 years and put disproportionate amount of money that kids are coming to schools. That ambition needs to go beyond. Our kids are learning as per their grade and age or not should have been the ambition. That's one thing I'm saying. And we need to be consistent. We need to be demanding about it. That's the first thing I'm saying. Similarly, in higher education, it can't be just, kids are just getting skilled. Right now, not kids in a sense, youth is getting skilled and getting a training certificate from skill development provider. No. Are they getting sustainable and decent employment? That's the ambition and that's the outcome that we should aim for consistently and hold ourselves accountable. That's one. That's not happening across sectors. The second problem I would see is the amount of broadly the general capacity of the state, and I would say, in that sense, the state or the system to deliver these outcomes, right? I think that's the second problem, including the teaching faculty, where we know when we've talked to enough number of people, if they're let's say broadly half of them have come to this sector as their interest, half of them have come because there's not a career choice that they come into teaching and even in the higher education and all. The best talent is not coming in, right? That's the manpower side of the capacity. But then there are the systemic side of this capacity, right? How are these resources who are working in this sector used and utilized? And that's another problem. I think, we really have a serious, I would say, capacity challenge, because that's what would give disproportionate benefits. If your system, which is delivering these outcomes, whether it is a school education outcome, whether it is universities, if the capacity of that system itself isn't good enough, we're going to struggle really, and that's been the challenge. And it's in every sense of the word, right? As I said, just having adequate number of people, that itself isn't there. Then having the right kind of people, then having technology and processes that utilize these things better, which is the systemic part of it. All of that is a challenge. That to me is the second, broad challenge, I think. And then the third part is again interesting, because it comes with the field of learning and education where we work, is the fact that, are we learning? We are not. And that's the other problem. As a system, I see we are repeating mistakes we have done many times before. We are not learning. We are not aware to the realities of the 21st century and the way it's going to affect our world disproportionately. The only way you can prepare for this dynamic world is if you're keen to learn. You will never know enough, or you will not have enough skill sets that you are ready for everything. That will never be the case, at least not now anymore. So if the system isn't learning, that's a problem. We all know how kids learn and etc., but we are not probably realizing how the system has to learn. We're not being good at it. And that's the third, but the most pressing concern I have.
Having worked in the space, Partha, for a while, these are such very nuanced points in the sense, especially the bit about capacity, right? The Indian state has great aspirations and ideas, and this we'll do this and that, and we'll do everything. But then when it comes to, I think Pranay Kotastane, he works at the Takshashila Institution and writes his weekly newsletter policy, and he says that the Indian state is omni-absent, right? Or maybe he quotes someone else saying this. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly. But basically that, it's everywhere, but it's nowhere in that sense, right? It's omni-absent instead of being omnipresent in that sense, like a classic inversion of that. What does social impact consulting mean? Like when you say that, you work in social impact consulting, right? What does such a job entail? Is it, like working with different stakeholders, government, private sector, civil society? Is it planning? Is it strategy? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, I'll come back to the system capacity point because it is important,
Yeah.
and because I'll think, I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah.
it is, if you ask me today, and having spent some time, in this sector and
Yeah.
in different capacities and different organizations, would probably approach it slightly differently for some reasons. Sometimes for profit, sometimes for, relationship, and, continuing to work with the stakeholders, with government or certain clients, and sometimes for impact, which is what you want to report to your donors and all of that, which is probably, what the not-for-profits look for, and to do that. Having done that, I have a fair sense now of a developing sense right now of what it should be. It should be, in a sense, to improve the state's capacity, to a large extent, yes. Because I believe, if we believe that these are areas where the state should be providing a role, right, or state should be playing a role, and then the state should be playing it, and playing it better. And I think, and there will always be gaps, and that's what I'm saying. And one of the things I'm listening to people and also articulating is that government will provide 80% of the services or the things that they're supposed to do to 80% of the people. Then there are who provides the services or who serves these 20% or the remaining 10-15%. That is one kind of work we can do. But most of us who work with the system, and now it's work that we work with the government, we work with the system. What that means is the government should be doing that now. But currently, if I see, Yash, what's happening is, unfortunately, all of the above, as you said. It's we are doing research. That's a part of social, and it is all. And I said it really would require all of us,
Yeah.
and we are, in a sense, we are inadequate. Some of these problems have been there for quite some time. There is no reason why it shouldn't be. There are economies like Vietnam and others, particularly with education, if you talk about, they have improved outcomes, and they have improved their systems, they've improved their outcomes sustainably, not a blip, or not for, let's say, good 2-3 years, strong government or large amount of donation. No,
Yeah.
that system capacity is built. And even if you look at India, we have built the capacity to do a lot of things very well by the government. I know you talked about government being omni absent. It's only absent for outcomes, unfortunately. It's superbly well functional while it tries to drive process compliance and certain things, and
Output.
getting some. So some of those things are happening well. So why it's not happening for outcomes is a question that I'm saying, because then a lot of the policy work, which today gets construed as policy, social impact consulting. So now I'm defining, I'm just, as I'm speaking, the word is, today's social impact consulting has been everything, and sometimes, unfortunately, is doing the state's work, which is a problematic area. I think if you listen to Yamini others, they're calling out, following out of the state or replacing the state. This should not be happening. But whatever the state is supposed to do very, very well, in an ideal world, or let's say in some economies, the state is doing it. The state is doing exceptional research. The state is getting evidence and on outcomes consistently, and then feeding it back to program design. The state is, leveraging technology to do things which would be harder or slower if you do it without it. Those are the kind of things today. Who's doing all of this thing? All of us, which is the social impact or public policy people. We are doing all of these things. So that's this. But in an ideal world, all of these things should be done by the state. Yes, they would require anybody, right? And that's what. So what kind of consulting? Let's say some of my colleagues, and I've done some private sector consulting as well. What would we do? We would try to push, if a client, let's say Vodafone or Motorola is doing something like this, we'd push it a little harder. Cost cutting projects. Yes, you're spending, can we reduce the cost by further 2%, 3%? Those kind of work still be required, which, with public policy as a field will be still relevant. So I'm not one to believe that, if government were to do all its job very well, the public policy space would vanish. No, it should be there, but it should be pushing the government higher, taking the bar higher, as opposed to what we're ending up today is potentially doing a lot of the stuff that the government is doing. That shouldn't be the case. I think, really, we should be adding a lot of value to the entire spectrum, from design to implementation, monitor, and then back.
You're almost like substituting the state in certain regard when we places again. What kind of skills though would someone need if they want to work in social impact consulting, Parthan, and more than that, what kind of opportunities for impact does this afford if someone's working here?
I think, yes, I think you can, interestingly, so that's the good thing that has happened. Now the entire gamut is open for you. You want to do research, work within your own space, read a lot of research, generate a lot of data. If you love, the quantitative side of it, if you're, you're good with numbers, you want to come up with surveys and all of that, go for it. RCT, and then the sky is the limit, go for it. Then there is a bunch of people who work on that, believe in that kind of approach, go for it. If you don't believe in that, even in this research space, you want to talk to people and figure them out, understand the whys more than the whats, etc. And that's the kind of research or area that excites you. There is an entire scope for you as well. If you like work with people, etc., implementation, you want to get things done, etc., things moving from A to B and so on, that's also space available for you. You want to work on, I think, policy side. And that's an interesting word. I think a lot of people think policy, but let's say I'll take an example of education. Probably it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for somebody like even me, who's like, I've seen 30 years, there's only one policy, right? I don't know when the next policy is going to happen. I think so policy drafting and all of that will be very rare, but program implementation, getting that to action, etc., is those are kind of work which will happen. That's the space for that. But I think fairly, whatever is your inclination and proclivity, you can choose that, and you will potentially find a career in that. You've done nothing to do with. You just love data visualizations and all. Be our guest. We need such people who can come and do that kind of work, and etc. Journalism. I feel, there is such a dearth of good writing in our sector in this, that people need to come back with good stories, not necessarily one kind, and etc. So there is literally anything and everything is possible. One big quality of I would say, it's nothing, it's this quality of the heart requires the gumption. Because it takes time, because you're talking about large numbers, because of the scale and etc. Things will take time. I think one of the biggest things that requires is this ability to find motivation, which I'm calling as gumption, to go on and stay on in this sector for some time. It doesn't matter what you want to do, and you can change. Today, doing this kind of work, tomorrow you want to do that kind of work. I would say that is more welcome. I think people who are thinkers, there is this thinking and doing people we talk about in consulting. Thinkers need to do a little bit more, and doers need to think a little bit more deeply. And those are all things that are required and will happen. The sector and the challenges will push us there if we are there for long enough. If anybody, I work with a lot of young people, hire most of them and many of them throughout my career. This is what I first thing say: you have to give yourselves time. Things will take time to move and see that then everything is possible. Whatever you desire today and tomorrow, if that changes, that's no problem. You'll find something for that as well.
I was just thinking about the previous answer about state capacity, Partha, and just a thought that I think the Indian state is great at doing things in which the impact or outcome is very visible in the short term, right, and immediate. But anything that is more diffuse, we just are not good at it. So conducting elections, great. You can immediately see this thing, right? A polio drive to eliminate polio or something, great, immediate, right? Sending man on the moon or something, right? Okay, not man, person on the moon, and not yet, but well, nonetheless, like you can see it, right? Tangibly and immediate. Tangible is another word, not just immediate, right? But I think something like a health or education, right, where the gains are dispersed, the benefits are dispersed, and the costs are considered in that sense in terms of whatever spending outlook. Maybe that, but nonetheless, I won't, because that's an entire conversation you and I should have maybe on a separate this thing. But sticking
very quickly, the recent example, Yash, where we did well is vaccination. I think it's the kind of problem you're solving. We did it fairly well, and and for our population, for us to do with all the challenges we have, we do amazing job. For that.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Couldn't agree more. Like, and I think that's why in some missions, wherever some policy objectives, whenever you put the state on a mission mode, it delivers. So Swachh Bharat mission or Jal Jeevan mission, right? You put it's not just about the branding, I feel, right? If you give the state clear timelines that 50% of India needs to have piped water by this time or whatever, at least it delivers better than usual, is what I've noticed, right? Unless otherwise, they've been trying to deliver water and cleanliness forever, not much has come. But I think there's that. If there's one thing, Partha, that you could change about the broader policy and social impact space in India today, right? It could be anything. What would that be?
Frankly, I think, Yash, we are at a good space in terms of the interest and energy. There are a lot of people working on it. Probably, I'm saying in sectors like education, there are far too many of us. And I'm being very blunt about it, more people need to work on spaces like sustainability, for the planet. And, I think climate change, more people need to work on it in India. Frankly, we will be disproportionately at a disadvantage in such areas, right? That's not unknown. More people need to work on that side. That's one kind of, wish I have. The other is, people being accountable, starting from the government, right? Please hold yourselves and all those you work with you accountable to outcomes. That's what I said. I think, we have seen government is extremely good at ensuring process compliance at scale. Today, you do something, we work with states to do a training or get people to come around, and across the state, large number is not a challenge. Any private organizations like, the ones that I work in and others, even the best of, big implementing organization will struggle to, reach and do things at that remote area of the country and so on. But the state can do it. The states, some of the states' mechanisms are built for that. I think the point is the system is at any point of time doing what it's supposed to do. We build this system for compliance. Why over the years are deeper questions, and I'm saying maybe because we're built like that, we carry a colonial structure, but to follow orders which are straightforward, we are good at that, right? But to ensure, because here the outcomes are fixed, how you achieve, you have to try different things. With every child, you have to try a different approach. It's so difficult, right? It is crazy. It's not even that one school, and I'm not even talking about one state being different from other. Here, every district is different. UP has 70 districts. Every school, and forget about every school, every child is different. So I think the point you're saying is to bring that focus on outcomes. I think, yes, I think even in the health sector, I remember, I keep on quoting this, I see in other developed economies, if a target is missed by a few decimal of points, there is such a hue and cry about it. Here, we miss numbers by the crores and nobody bats an eyelid. That's a problem. I think we owe ourselves, a lot of money is being spent. That is one point. A lot of time and effort is being spent. And the biggest point is the opportunity cost, right? If we tried something which is suboptimal for child, the child has passed that stage. We have done so much of disservice to the entire cohort of children in a state, in a district, or whatever. Who's responsible for it? I think one of the things is, here the child can't come back and ask a question, or vote us out of power. If but in a health and agriculture, if things don't work, these people have a voice. The unfortunate thing here is the child doesn't have a voice. The parents have a voice in which, if it's not heard by the government, they're exercising their choice. They're moving out of our systems and putting their kids in private school. Right? That's what is happening out of the state system. So I think more accountability on outcomes and getting better at measuring outcomes and, being serious. Everybody needs to talk about that language is what is required. Now it's all, a lot of mumbo jumbo. It's about one narrative versus other, which is, serving all of us, but not necessarily serving the system or the ultimate, stakeholders of the system or the system actors to believe.
I think the people, Partha, and this is on a more slightly historical note, are usually, they're very content. Like, I think it comes down from the fact that, we got our independence after a struggle, and the same people who fought for independence became the government. And, since then we have held the government in some sort of a reverence, right? So today, if a private sector company cheats us out of 100 rupees, we'll be like, it's our money, right? So you're accountable. But when the government does that, and it's literally your money again, right? It's taxpayers' money. There's no government money. It's all taxpayers' money. Then there's no accountability demand, right? Because, there's that. The other thing is that people also usually very easily get satisfied in the sense that, I think after, say, for example, what happened recently with the lunar, the rover, right? Very proud of ISRO, of course. And then people were like, yeah, we're doing better than China and this and that. And I have to tell, a lot of people in my family as well, they listen. An average Chinese is 5 times richer than we are. Children there are far better off, right? They're far more educated, they're healthier, they're better taught and all of it. So there's really a very different race. So
we have to be better at it, Yash. I think that's what I say. Let's look at two numbers. And I think that's what I'm saying. That's about one narrative versus the other. What's the narrative we hear? We are the 5th largest economy, and soon we'll become 5 trillion economy and all, right? Which we're just amazing. It's not false, for God's sake. There's a lot of falsehood and postal going, but it's not false. But there's another indicator. When you divide that number by the number of people we have, which is the per capita income.
We're 148th or something.
There we are 5th. Here we are, I think, 120th or something. We were just having this chat in Bihar. I was sitting with my team leaders. and team, and we're talking about it, and we're saying nobody talks about this. And how is this okay? Yes, that's also true, but this is also true. We have just so many more people, far more, proportion of the people than we have the proportion of the, the sort of GDP. I think somewhere we have to talk about both. And that's what I think, that's what I would say is somewhat up to us also, as public professionals to talk about it. Yes, yes, in my program, I did something. I'm sending a bunch of materials out. I'm doing a lot of stuff. Is that something I should be happy about? Yes, I should be happy about. Should I celebrate it? Let's take the Chandrayaan example, right? We have reached there. To do what? Reaching there isn't solving anything. Yes, if that, that rover there is helping us predict some climate change and whatever, then that's the outcome. By itself, doing something or, sending materials to schools is not going to solve for learning, right? It's the same way that opening schools and having teachers didn't solve for learning. It solved for kids getting enrolled. It still is not solving for attendance. Because there's no engagement in schools. There's nothing which is exciting a child to come and learn in a school. Yes, it's solving nutrition problem. We are giving some food to the child. But ye nahi ho raha hai na? So I think somewhere that needs to happen, and that's I would say, that's the ambition we should be aiming for, and that's where we should be, holding ourselves accountable, and that's what should change in the public policy space. Better, sharper, clearer communication, good conversations, holding each other accountable, and so on.
In like 20 seconds, which part of the NEP you think, Partha, if implemented well, will be the most transformative? Will it be like providing breakfast at schools for more retention? Will it be a new sort of a curriculum? Like, which part of it you think has the most impact potential?
No, I think I might be, sort of, coming across as saying what I do is, but that is actually, and that the policy says it so well. I think, as I said, policy is an intent, but the intent can be made supremely clear so that any 3-4 people who read it cannot go back with different interpretations. I think that's what this policy does. It says foundation learning is the most important thing, which, I would take it a little broadly. It's not getting caught in the age bracket, etc. Broadly, the early years to primary school learning. And that is research across countries throughout years, which is saying investment in that gives you the biggest disproportionate gains as an economy. And today we are realizing, even there is even sharper research coming out, Yash, and that's the kind of work public policy people like us should be doing. That after a point, increasing access won't help you more. Increase the quality or the number of kids who are having these basic universal skills. Frankly, Yash, I think I am saying, because everything else, yes, there are a lot of things which sound very good. Competency-based education, flexibility, interdisciplinary at different levels of the policy, and I've worked in each of these to know what these are difficult to happen. But I think what the policy says that if this doesn't happen, that let's say and that's the fundamental shift, Harsh. We talked about a little bit about how we inherited a society where it was okay for some of us to be competent, right? That's the nature of the society, and that's a number of opportunities are limited. So you believe, yes, a certain section of population, because their parents are educated or they belong to a certain class, is okay for them to be competent and good at these skills. The rest of them will be average, and most of them will be poor. That's what needs to change in foundation learning, because we're saying these skills are so basic that for a society to develop and become something fundamentally different, our primary education, those skills, each and every of us need to have. It's not good enough to have 70%, 50%, 80, 90% of our children should have the basic competencies which you and I have. And then further on, they can decide, and other factors will come in. But these are so basic that everybody has to happen. So frankly, this is the biggest, area, but it's an intent. It has to move from intent to action, and funding is available now. So all of those things are good signs that will probably happen. It is also a mission now. I think a lot of things are said, but you don't know whether they'll happen or not, right? Let's say, talk about the 6% of GDP. It's just good to talk about. Sounds good. For 60 years, we haven't been done in 70 years. We'll never do it. It's probably not required. We need to do more, better utilization of funds and all of that. So that's the kind of thing. But now we need to change the outcomes around it. We need to ensure that 80, 90% of our kids are achieving actually the foundation skills in the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Last couple of minutes that we have. If you were to be talking to, say, someone who's in second year of undergrad right now, first or second year, like a freshman in that sense, and they ask you that, what do you suggest I do to build a career policy, right? a few words of advice or perspectives that you would share with them.
Okay. Uh, yeah, you have to bear with me because I don't actually get to talk to a lot of them, and hence, I thought maybe this is one way. I work with, anywhere between 25-year-olds to 35 years to probably 55 years in my team. I
Yeah.
do it a lot of talking with them and the stakeholders. But no, at that stage, I think it's very important. And I'm saying, I'm reflecting back on me and many people like me who took this call. So I would say two, three things. A, read a lot. I mean, read a variety of things, not, you know, and listen if you like, but, if you like podcasts, and listen to a variety of stuff, and then be well informed about what you do, not necessarily what a certain section is telling you, whether it's the media, whether your parent
Yeah.
or your, so-called well-wisher or uncle in the family. Listen to a variety of things, read a variety of things, be well informed. That's very important because that's what I don't see happening whenever I get a chance to interact with young people. The other is, work with an organization or organizations in that sense. There is a debate club, go and join it. There is a, it could be anything, whatever excites you. There is a finance club, if that excites you, go and do it, right? If there is a social media club, go and work with a bunch of people who are doing something on it. Because don't be in a room with your device, whether it's a smartphone or the computer or the smart TV, and be glued to it. Be out there, be with people, engage, and that'll, because at that point you're just trying to broaden your mind and truly be educated. That's what you're doing, right? Beyond what's happening at the college or university where that's not the only place you learn. Just have these opportunities and avenues, and keep. There isn't a specific book that I would say. Hence, I would say just read whatever you like. That could be changing. And engage. If you like LinkedIn post, write, lead. Whatever excites you, whatever avenues you have. Just don't be limited to a particular thing, and work with some organization that will help. I would say very early at that stage of your career, and not necessarily, and a lot of people do internships and all that. Those are all good things. You get to know things from an experiential point of view. I would say do as much of that as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Partha. This means a lot. I learned a lot, and I'm sure audience will as well. For our audiences, if you have any thoughts, please put them in the comments. I'll share Partha's LinkedIn ID in the description. Do reach out to him. He's very helpful. And if you think of anyone else we should get as a guest, all in comments below. Please do share. This was a value. And thank you so much for taking out your time. Thank you again, Partha. Take care. Speak soon.
Thank you, Yash. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.